Cinema Classics is sponsored by the Gateway Film Center and is produced by John DeSando and Johnny DiLoretto. Listen to shows online at WCBE.org. I'm John DeSando.
I'm Johnny DiLoretto.
This is Cinema Classics.
Indeed it is.
And what do you know about drive-in theaters?
Oh man, you think I'm too young to know?
I do, actually, yes.
Turns out, you know what? You're probably too young to know because they were invented as far back as 1915.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
okay?
You're right.
So there's an interesting history there, but here's what I know about drive-in theaters. I grew up in Steubenville, Ohio. On the outskirts of town, in Wintersville, there was this drive-in theater, and back then, you know, people still went to the drive-in. I frequented the drive-in, and one of my earliest memories of cinema, actually, you know, back then too, in the late 60s and early 70s, movies had second runs, third runs. It wasn't like today where they just disappeared and you either saw them on DVD or on cable or now on streaming services. So it was probably, I was probably about 2 years old. This was the early 70s, and my parents went to the drive-in to see The Graduate.
Nice.
And I was in the back seat.
Wow.
And I mean,
that's good.
I was like laying in the back seat watching this movie, and my earliest cinematic memory is seeing Dustin Hoffman decked out in his scuba gear, and that sort of ominous scene where he's submerged himself, and just that breathing, the breathing apparatus, that Darth Vader-esque thing. And I remember being very scared and very creeped out by it. And it wasn't until many years later that I realized what I had seen was The Graduate.
Well, it was no better. There's no better environment. You had your little tomb-like car.
Yeah.
You were isolated from everybody else.
Yeah.
You had this big screen out there, so it was a little bit edgy, a little scary, and that's for the family.
Yeah.
For the rest of us who are doing our night moves,
right.
This was the place.
Yeah, you were probably using this to operate in a different vein.
Listen, there's a whole social fabric in this thing.
Yeah.
I mean, they were powerful. But there was one I remember, a very famous one that you would find interesting, called the Johnny Allweather Drive-In.
Oh.
What about this?
Where's that?
In Copiac, New York, covering 28 acres. It could park 2,500 vehicles. It had a full-service restaurant with seating on the roof and a trolley system to take children and adults to a playground and a large indoor theater for bad weather or for those who wanted to watch in air-conditioned cover. That's America, man.
Wow, yeah. Where is this place?
In New York. I have no idea. It's a small town in New York.
Wow.
But anyway, but the point being, it was like my Saturday shows.
Yeah.
It was really a cultural must-do.
For sure.
Yeah, and I had two experiences that I remember vividly.
Okay.
1951, the day the Earth stood still.
Oh,
how's that for
wow.
the drive-in
what a
show?
perfect drive-in movie, yeah.
And the other one was 1958, the guy who became one of our heroes, Steve McQueen.
Oh, The Great Escape? You saw that one?
No, The Blob.
Oh, The Blob. Oh, what another great drive-in movie.
Isn't that terrific?
Yeah.
Now, I mean, you made the point, I think, but I'll emphasize it again. There were two movies because people were going to be staying there past midnight.
Yeah.
Now, that second movie was a doozy.
Yeah.
Unforgettable. But that was part of the experience. And do you remember how cool you were when you brought your lawn chair and sat in front of your Plymouth Fury and drank your beer?
Yeah, for sure. You know, it is such an interesting concept, a way to see a film. There's something adventurous about it. You know, it felt fundamentally different. You know, pulling into the car, pulling in with your car, you're the car full of people, or you know, rowdy kids. It could have been. I have a few other memories I want to share with you. Drive-in theaters. I remember, again, my parents. It was early '80s now. This time, and we went to see Blade Runner.
Ooh.
And
whoa.
My dad was complaining the whole time that he couldn't see it.
I'm sure he couldn't.
I couldn't see it. It's too dark.
What a great movie.
Yeah.
Now, how about the way everybody was dressed? That was nothing. You didn't get dressed up for the drive-in, right?
No.
Pajamas.
You could be in your pajamas.
I know it was. How about the food?
Well, I don't really remember much about
Well,
the
what I
food.
remember,
Hot dogs and whatnot.
they had all these kind of little, cute little cartoonish things to seduce you to go in there. But the
Right.
most annoying of all was the little guy with the arrow on the, 2 minutes left.
Yeah, like you gotta get back, right?
Right, and they went there and keep it up there a minute.
Yeah. That you just remind me of another more terrifying memory that I have. My uncle took me to the drive-in to see one of these, like, I don't know, it was probably like it was one of these sci-fi sword and sandal mashup movies from the 80s, and he gave me some money to go get some snacks, and I left the car. I was probably 10, and I'm coming back, and I you just look at the vast expanse of
good
cars,
point, right.
and suddenly I was just lost, and
Yes,
I was trying to remember what his car looked like. Finally, I see what I think is the car. I dash up to it. I go to open it. I look in, and I'm looking at a man's bare butt thrusting
Why
up
not?
towards me in the night, back and forth.
Why not?
And I realized I was at and the next question is, was that your uncle taking advantage of?
It was my brother before he went to seminary.
But no, I very quickly righted myself and found the right car. But I'll tell you what, man, I never forgot the image of that guy's butt just
God.
coming up
Well,
and down and up.
I shouldn't have forgotten. In 1953, see, I thought the really early stages, Mesa of Lost Women.
Oh, wow. What is that?
As my note here is Spider Venom creating a master race of women.
You saw that movie?
No, I'm telling you I did, but you know my memory.
Oh,
Probably not. I mean, I researched it, but that struck me as just so typical of that time. And, there are other things. There are small survival strategies here. For instance, how early do you get there so you get your right spot?
Yeah.
So people would get there hours ahead of time.
Uh-huh.
Secondly, how do you maneuver this sound system? It was like a little hanging Chad on your window.
Hanging Chad. That thing was going to break the glass.
I know it did.
It was, it looked like one of those old microphones, that you would use, but twice the size
Yeah.
and the weight of it. I was always afraid that thing, the noise that it made against the glass, I thought for sure.
And how many a night pulled away and pulling that thing away,
Oh,
if
my.
not their whole window. And you know what kind of janitorial system they might have had.
Do you remember the last movie you saw in a drive-in theater?
Probably about 1959 is my guess. As I was
Wow,
there.
really?
Yeah.
You
And-
never took your kids to a drive-in?
No. It's a good question. I don't know the answer to that. Right? But I do remember The Angry Red Planet in 1959.
Okay.
Because I kind of like sci-fi, like it being out there.
Yeah.
That's where you have the traumatized survivors of an expedition.
Yeah.
So that I can remember that, but I mean, you're right. Because you were seeing them back in the 70s. I'm sure I took the kids.
I saw them in the 80s, and I think no, I got two. I got two more drive-in stories if you want to hear them.
Of course.
In the 80s, again, later 80s, a movie called Maximum Overdrive.
Oh, yeah.
Stephen King's directorial debut.
Good one.
And the last film he ever directed. No one ever let that guy direct again. I saw it with my buddy and his mom. And we were all seated in the front seat of her car. And I will just never forget it because I couldn't pay attention to the movie because his mom was so beautiful.
Oh,
It was his hot mom.
Nice.
And I was just like, frozen with, just like brushed up against her.
Well, you're reminding me again of all the little social intertwinings here. You could be there, maybe you and a buddy taking dates, but unfortunately your sister and her friends would be there that night too.
Oh.
And they would harass the heck out of you. And they could do that easily because they had passed by the car,
Yeah.
they could shout, so they didn't
Right.
do anything.
Constantly interrupting your vibe.
Because we're being cool.
Yeah.
And another thing was, another survival tactic, you had to bring certainly a portable radio. Because if you didn't like that sound system we were talking about on the window, you could get it through your radio or through your car radio.
Yeah.
However, you could, of course, drain your battery.
Right.
So there are all kinds of possibilities for things to go wrong, which made it even more exciting.
Or, I can remember going with my high school friends, which was always a bad idea. That is not a cinematic experience. You know, you're just up to no good.
It's right.
And I can remember like the anxiety of, am I going to be the guy that gets picked to get shoved in the trunk? You know, because they would like
right.
sneak you in
Right.
to the
So-
trunk.
Only so many people. Oh my
Oh my
Lord.
God, I was so like nervous about. You know, fortunately, I don't think I was never the guy that volunteered. Certainly not volunteered to get in the trunk. But anyway, that was one thing that kids did. The last memory I have of a drive-in theater was the early '90s when me and my buddies were driving cross country in a little college adventure. Unforgiven came out,
Oh.
and on the way back, we had hit the far west coast, and we were turning back home, and we stopped in Salt Lake City, Utah, and saw Unforgiven for the second or third time on the
Okay,
drive-in
yeah.
screen.
Oh yeah. One of your favorites. What a great way to see it. They're coming back.
Yeah,
You know, it'll never take the place of Dolby sound, all that. You know, everything, all the beautiful chairs that we have now.
yeah.
They'll never be able to compete. But there was a certain, I think you mentioned it, but there's a certain kind of, it was like camping out, but yet having movies.
Mm-hmm.
It was a couple of things that we really liked and thought about. The roughness, the cowboyishness of it. And,
Yeah, and also just the transformation of your car into a living room or living space,
Yeah.
and kind of just getting cozy with your loved ones
Yeah.
in a car and watching a movie. It's great. This is maybe one good thing that's come out of this whole pandemic tragedy, is that because movie theaters are
Yes.
closed right now, that you can go see and have this experience with your family at right now the South High Drive-In. Yeah.
Mhm.
And just what a great way. If people have never done it, now's the time.
And you can count on Cinema Classics to be right there, either 50 years ago or today.
That's right.